Good morning. I grabbed Rick on his way out to the church this morning because I wanted to have him stop by, and I wanted to kind of share little thoughts that I was having, and thought, hey, let's just send it out to people. So hope you find this interesting. But first of all, I wanted to talk a little bit about the message from Sunday out of John 3 and 4. And just want to encourage people, if you didn't hear it, to take the time to listen to it. In particular, what struck me particularly was in John 4 when you were talking about the nobleman and how the nobleman's son was sick, and he came to Jesus, wanted Jesus to come with him to heal his son. And some events there, but Jesus said, hey, your child is healed, go your way. And so the nobleman started walking home, and on his way home he was greeted by the fact that with the news that his child had been healed. And he inquired on, when did that happen, when did this child start getting better, and they figured that it was about right at the same time that Jesus had said, your child is healed. And you talked about Sunday, and I thought it was really good, and you got that globe out, and you were talking about Magellan, and how before Magellan, the truth of the state of the earth was that it was flat. And Magellan had a different opinion about that and believed that it was round. And so you lean in on that a little bit, because I thought it was so cool about how his faith proved that the earth was round.
You know, the prevailing thought of the day was that it was flat, but the truth was still the truth, that it was round. But people were operating under a false truth, and so they were living their life a certain way, not knowing that there was such horizons and the whole world could open up to them. But one man, or others too, but Magellan decided to take his, where he said, no, I believe this thing's round, and the only way I'm going to be able to really show this is to act upon it. And so he acted and circumnavigated the world, and you could say the rest is history. You know, we're here today because the world is round, and Magellan believed it, and he acted on it.
Right. And so even on Sunday when I was listening to that, I was like, man, there's something really good in that to really, like lean into for me. And so in my time with the Lord on Monday, I was in Psalms 81, and which wasn't really talking about, necessarily faith and Magellan, of course, but that was still kind of, I was still pondering that in the backdrop of me reading Psalms 81. And Psalms 81 talks about, really about listening to the Lord, and listening to the Lord, and that out of that, will come obedience. And so I thought about how, we how can we obey unless we listen? Because we don't know what God's will is unless we listen, and how will we do God's will unless we know what it is? And so that was really interesting to me. But then a lot of Psalm 81 talks about how in that process of listening, God's going to defeat your enemies. And I started thinking about how the idea of Magellan stepping out in faith, the enemies had to overcome fear, insecurity, all of those things. And I thought about, there's things in my heart that I know are true, but I'm not acting on them and not believing and stepping out and doing them. And so not only does, in listening to the Lord, having time with the Lord, do you know what his will is, but he also defeats your enemies to empower you to accomplish his will. And that's really been just some things that I've kind of wanted to do, but through whatever reason, I'm sure Magellan, had wanted to sail circumnavigate the earth, but he had to have some faith to do it, and that's how all this came together. And it's really been a blessing, and I think there's a lot of lessons for us about like leaning into some things. Like sometimes you have to go deeper than your first hearing of something, and that's what I appreciate about Sunday, and just how setting the table for the rest of the week for people. Like you revisit the things that are said and ponder them. So that's kind of opened up my week a little bit. And so it's also kind of made me think a little bit of some thoughts I've had about some current events in our community in regards to the jail expansion. And I've had this idea. It's kind of like one of those ideas that I've had about like wanting to talk about things and from a perspective and lean into them and give people some thoughts to think about. But I'd like to kind of almost like in some ways do like a series of the title it, Why Should I?
Yeah.
Because our culture tells us certain things that you should do this, you should think this, you should want this, and I
But
think
we need to stop and ask the question,
why should I? And so when our county leaders are telling us pretty emphatically we should vote for a bigger jail, okay, so let's look at that, and that's what I've been thinking about. And so in this process of thinking about this jail expansion, one of the things that has come about is like this glitch, because it's difficult for me as I've been involved, probably coming into my walk with the Lord a little bit later into the whole idea of doing justice. Been more getting people to heaven, but thinking about, no, we're here on this planet, and there's a whole slew of things I could talk about that, but about the kingdom message changes our perspective about that, and it's what's wonderful about that. But but it's been difficult for me to understand how I have had an expectation in this that progressives in our community would find themselves on a side of a different opinion than jail expansion, and
because that where they've come from, what they've always believed would tell you they would never be for that.
It just doesn't seem that way to me. And opponents of jail expansion, and so if you would have told me, so this is the thing that's kind of funny to me. It's like if you would have told me in the 1980s when I was at KU that the people that led the progressive movement on the college campus at KU would now be some of the biggest advocates for jail expansion, I just flat out wouldn't have believed you.
You wouldn't have had any context to think there's no way that would be possible.
I just wouldn't. So there's a little bit of.
And when you were on the campus in the 80s, wasn't Boog Heiberger there with you? And he was running for office, wasn't he?
Boog was a very prominent figure. Now he's the state representative for the 46th district here in our community, and he was really one of the vocal leaders of the progressive movement. And he and some others actually led a upset victory in student government. And so they implemented on the campus their liberal policies, but it was no surprise because he was consistent with what he said. He said this is what they believe, and so when they got elected, he was consistent with those beliefs, and so there was no surprise.
Right.
But fast forward now to the present, 2018, and it's because even all of the Democratic office holders in our community, in our area, are all adamant supporters of jail expansion. So here's my problem. So when you expect people to operate by a certain set of political philosophy and
be consistent with those.
Consistent.
When you believe them, you live them out or you act upon them in a certain way.
And so when their opinions are inconsistent with your expectation, you first have to go, oh, well, maybe you want to lean in and think about, okay, maybe there's some valid reasons for them wanting to do that. But then after listening, to that and still not really grasping any reasoned logic for an explanation of why they're advocating for something that's contrary to what your expected view of what they would do is, that it leads you to kind of like have this, what I want to call like a glitch.
Yeah. Because even the Democratic National Platform, expect them to
platform. It says, instead of investing in more jails and incarceration, We need to invest more in jobs and education and in the school to prison pipeline. So
that's from the 2016 Democratic platform.
Yes. So it makes you want to ask,
why is the inconsistency?
Yeah. And then, therefore, if there is an inconsistency, why is there what makes Lawrence such an anomaly then to the rest of the nation that, oh, this is our goal for the whole nation, but Lawrence is an anomaly to that?
We have some special circumstance
Yes.
that would make our progressives push towards doubling the jail rather than look to alternatives.
Right. And so here's the point to this is that, you know, when you don't want to when you have a glitch and you can't figure any reason logic for the glitch, then it leads you to think about motive.
Yeah.
And that can become, you know, a pretty dirty business.
Yeah.
And things can get ugly. And that's not what I want to do. But I do want to ask our community the question to, why should I vote for the jail? Is you first got to tell me, why is Lawrence such an anomaly to what the national trend is to go away from investing in jails and investing in alternatives to jail expansion?
And the difficulty gotten that answer of why.
I haven't.
Yeah, and so that's the challenge right now, is it's being put forth for a vote soon, and the question of why is this really needed, or why does this need to be advanced before an equal or greater investment is made in the alternatives.
Exactly. You want at least the same passion and energy used to coming up with alternatives as has been demonstrated for a jail expansion.
Yeah. That have shown themselves to be successful in other counties too, around the nation and other states. So,
yeah. So, you know, we'll look more at this and other things. So, hey, hope you have a great day. God bless you. Read your Bible and keep on believing. Thanks, Rick.
See you guys.
Goodbye.